Women either play it so safe that they never make progress, or they take reckless risk that put everyone in jeopardy. They invest their last money in a business idea that they haven't validated. What if I told you that risk isn't something you either avoid or embrace blindly? I've taken both smart risk and reckless gambles in my entrepreneurial journey. The smart risk built my business. The reckless gambles nearly destroyed me. The difference wasn't luck, it was risk intelligence. I'm going to show you the science of intelligent risk assessment, how to create your personal risk tolerance profile, and how to build your risk muscle through progressive exposure. This isn't about becoming reckless or playing it safe. This is about developing risk intelligence, the ability to take calculated risks that move your business forward. Hello beautiful souls, and welcome to the Confident Podcast, where bold women take the brave leap to build businesses and lives they deserve. I'm Debbie, and today I'm going to teach you something that could be the difference between building a successful business and losing everything. How to tell the difference between smart risks and reckless gambles. Here's what I see happening constantly. Women either play it so safe that they never make progress, or they take reckless risk that put everyone in jeopardy. They quit their jobs with no savings. They invest their last money in a business idea that they haven't validated. They make emotional decisions disguised as leaps of faith. On the flip side, I see a woman who's been preparing for years, but never actually take action because they're waiting for a risk-free guarantee that doesn't exist. But what if I told you that risk isn't something you either avoid or embrace blindly? What if risk is you can actually assess, calculate, and manage strategically? I've taken both smart risk and reckless gambles in my entrepreneurial journey. The smart risk built my business. The reckless gambles nearly destroyed me. The difference wasn't luck. It was risk intelligence. I had to learn the hard way that courage without calculation is just recklessness. But I also learned that calculation without courage is just procrastination. Today, I'm going to show you the science of intelligent risk assessment, how to create your personal risk tolerance profile, the 5-question framework for evaluating any business risk, and how to build your risk muscle through progressive exposure, so you can take bigger, smarter risk over time. This isn't about becoming reckless or playing it safe. This is about developing risk intelligence, the ability to take calculated risk that move your business forward without putting everything in jeopardy. So let's dive into the science of smart risk taking. Let me start by explaining what risk intelligence actually is, and why most people get risk assessment completely wrong. Risk intelligence is the ability to accurately assess the probability and potential impact of uncertain outcomes, then make decisions based on that assessment, rather than on emotion or fear. Every risk has 2 components, probability and impact. Probability is how likely something is to happen. Impact is how much it would matter if it did happen. Most people confuse high probability, low impact risk with low probability, high impact risk. They worry about the wrong things and ignore the real dangers. Imagine a matrix with 4 quadrants. High probability, high impact. These are the risks you must address immediately. High probability, low impact. These are annoyances you can manage. Low probability, high impact. These need contingency plans. Low probability, low impact. These can be ignored. Here's where most people go wrong. They assess risk emotionally instead of rationally. Something feels scary, so they assume it's high risk. Something feels exciting, so they assume it is low risk. But feelings aren't facts. Your fear of public speaking doesn't make it a high risk. Your excitement about a business opportunity doesn't make it low risk. We also fall victim to availability bias. We overestimate the probability of things we can easily remember. If you know someone whose business failed, you overestimate the risk of business failure. If you know someone who succeeded quickly, you underestimate the challenges. You must avoid for loss aversion. You feel losses about twice as strongly as equivalent gains. This means we naturally overweigh the risk of loss and underweigh the potential for gain. This is why people stay in jobs they hate. The potential loss, steady paycheck, benefits, security, feels more real than the potential gain. Freedom, fulfillment, unlimited income. So what's the difference between a smart risk and a reckless gamble? Smart risks have these characteristics. First, you've done your research. You understand the probability and potential impact. You're not guessing, you are calculating. Second, you have a mitigation plan. You thought through what could go wrong and how you will handle it. You're not hoping for the best. You're preparing for the worst. Third, the potential upside significantly outweighs the potential downside. You're not risking everything for a small gain. You're risking something manageable for significant opportunities. Fourth, you can afford the worst-case scenario. If everything goes wrong, you'll survive. You might be uncomfortable, but you won't be destroyed. Reckless gambles have these characteristics. First, you're making emotional decisions. You're acting from desperation, excitement, or ego, rather from rational assessment. Second, you haven't validated your assumptions. You are betting on hope rather than evidence. Third, you're risking more than you can afford to lose. If it doesn't work out, you're in serious trouble. Fourth, you have no backup plan. You're all in with no safety net. Here's the paradox. Successful entrepreneurs are often described as risk takers, but research show they are actually risk managers. They take calculated risk that others perceive as dangerous, but they have assessed as manageable. They are more comfortable with risk. They are better at accessing and managing it. Now, let's help you understand your personal risk tolerance profile, because not everyone should take the same risks. Your risk tolerance depends on your circumstances, your personality, and your goals. Risk tolerance has 3 dimensions: financial capacity, emotional capacity, and situational capacity. You need to assess all 3 honestly. Number 1, financial capacity. Financial capacity is objective. It's about numbers, not feelings. How much can you actually afford to risk? Ask yourself, how many months of expenses do I have saved? What are my fixed financial obligations? Do I have dependents relying on my income? What debt do I carry? If you have 6 months of savings, no dependents, and low debt, you've got high financial capacity for risk than others with no savings, 3 kids, and a mortgage. I categorize financial risk capacity into 3 zones. The green zone, 6+ months of expenses saved, low debt, no dependents, and a strong partner income. You can take bigger financial risks. The yellow zone, 3 to 6 months savings, moderate debt, some dependents. You can take calculated risk that need more caution. Red zone, less than 3 months saves, high debt, dependents relying on you. You need to build financial capacity before taking big risks. Dimension 2 is emotional capacity. Emotional capacity is objective. It's all about how you handle uncertainty and stress. Ask yourself, how do I handle uncertainty? Can I sleep at night when outcomes are unknown? Do I catastrophize, or can I stand rational under pressure? How can stress affect my decision making? Some people thrive in uncertainty. Others become paralyzed. None is wrong. They're just different risk tolerance profiles. If uncertainty causes you so much stress that you can't function, you need to take smaller risks or build your emotional capacity before taking bigger ones. If you're energized by uncertainty and bored by predictability, you can handle bigger risks. But watch out for recklessness disguised as confidence. Dimension 3, situational capacity. Situational capacity is contextual. It's about your current life circumstances and timing. Ask yourself, what else is happening in my life right now? Am I dealing with health issues, family crises, or major life transitions? Do I have the support system in place? Is this the right timing? You might have high financial emotional capacity, but if you're going through a divorce, caring for a sick parent, or dealing with your own health crisis, your situational capacity for risk is lower. So how do we bring this all together? Your overall risk tolerance is determined by your lowest capacity dimension. If you have high financial capacity but low emotional capacity, your overall risk tolerance is low. This is why the same risk that's smart for one person is reckless for another. It's not about the risk itself. It's about the fit between the risk and your capacity. Here's how to create your own risk profile. Rate yourself between 1 to 10 in each dimension: financial, emotional, and situational. Your average score is your current risk tolerance. If you are between 8 and 10, you can take bigger, bolder risks. If you're between 5 and 7, you can take moderate, calculated risks. If you're between 1 and 4, you need to build capacity before taking big risks. If your risk tolerance is lower than you like, you can build capacity. Save more money to increase your financial capacity. Practice uncertainty intolerance to increase your emotional tolerance. Resolve life issues to increase your situational capacity. Risk tolerance isn't fixed. It's something you can develop over time. Now, let me give you the exact framework I use to evaluate any business risk. 5 questions that will help you determine if a risk is smart or reckless. Question 1. What's the worst case scenario and can I survive it? This is the most important question. Not what's the best case, what is the worst case and can I handle it? If you take this risk and everything goes wrong, what happens? Do you lose some money but recover? Or do you lose your home, destroy your credit, and devastate your family? If you can't survive the worst case, it's a reckless gamble, not a smart risk. Once you've identified the worst case, create a mitigation plan. What would you do if it happened? Having a plan reduces the actual risk and increases your confidence. Question 2. What evidence do I have that this could work? Smart risks are based on evidence, not just hope. What data, research, or validation do you have? Evidence might be market research showing demand, beta customers who've paid you for your solutions, successful case studies from similar businesses, or your own test results from a small pilot. If your only evidence is, I think this is a good idea, or my friend said they will buy it, you don't have enough evidence. You're gambling, not calculating. Question 3. What's my backup plan if this doesn't work? Smart risk takers always have a plan B. Reckless gamblers put all the eggs in one basket. Your backup plan might be going back to corporate if needed, pivoting into a different business model, scaling back to part-time, or having a partner's income to rely on. If your answer is, I've got no backup plan, this has to work, you're taking a reckless gamble. Question 4. Am I making this decision from fear, desperation, or ego? Emotional decisions disguised as business decisions are usually reckless gambles. Ask yourself honestly, am I doing this because I'm desperate to escape my current situation? Am I trying to prove something to someone? Am I acting from FOMO, fear of missing out? If the answer is yes, pause. Wait until you can make the decision from a place of clarity rather than emotion. Question 5. What's the opportunity cost for not taking this risk? This is a question that helps you avoid playing it too safe. What do you lose by not taking this risk? Jeff Bezos called this regret minimization. When you're 80 years old, will you regret taking this risk or not taking this risk? Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking risk at all. Sometimes playing it safe is actually the reckless choice because you're gambling with your potential. Here's how to use this framework. Write down the risk you are considering. Answer all 5 questions honestly. If you can survive the worst case scenario, have evidence that it can work, have a backup plan, or making the decision rationally, and would regret not taking it, it's probably a smart risk. If you can't survive the worst case scenario, have no evidence, have no backup plan, are deciding emotionally, and are just chasing excitement, it's probably a reckless gamble. Finally, let me talk about building your risk muscle through progressive exposure. You don't start by taking huge risk. You start small and build up. Start with a small risk that stretches you slightly beyond your comfort zone. Maybe it's posting on social media when you're afraid of judgment. Maybe it's reaching out to one potential client when you're afraid of rejection. Take the small risk, survive it, learn from it, then take a slightly bigger risk. This progressive exposure builds your risk tolerance muscle. Each successful risk builds evidence that you can handle uncertainty. This evidence increases your confidence, which increases your capacity for taking bigger risks. Beautiful souls. I want you to understand that risk intelligence isn't about being fearless. It's about taking calculated risks that move your business forward without putting everything in jeopardy. The most successful entrepreneurs aren't the biggest risk takers. They are the smartest risk assessors. They understand their risk tolerance. They evaluate opportunities systematically, and they build their risk muscle progressively. Don't let fear keep you playing small, but don't let excitement make you reckless. Develop the intelligence to know the difference between smart risks and reckless gambles. Here's what I want you to do this week. First, assess your risk tolerance profile across all 3 dimensions. Second, identify one risk you are considering and run that through the 5-question framework. Third, take one small risk that stretches you slightly beyond your comfort zone. I'd love to hear about your risk intelligence journey. Send me a message and tell me about a smart risk you took that actually paid off, or reckless gambled you avoided by using this framework. Remember, beautiful souls, playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do with your one precious life. But reckless gambling is the fastest way to lose everything. The answer isn't about avoiding risk or embracing it blindly. It's developing the intelligence to take smart risks that build your business and your future. Your risk intelligence is your competitive advantage. Develop it, trust it, and use it to build something extraordinary. Thank you for listening, beautiful souls. See you next week for another dose of truth, boldness, and transformation.